What happens when you put Lord of the Rings in modern day LA? My name is Steven, and we're talking Flix. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Talking Flix. Joining me today is Mayhem Mike. How you doing today, Mayhem?
Doing pretty good, Steven. Thanks for having me.
Alright guys, so today we're going to cover Bright. So it's been a while since we covered anything off of cinema, but when it came to this movie we had to give it a chance because there was a lot of hype behind it. Now, if you haven't heard about it yet, Bright, Netflix original movie starring Will Smith, takes place in a world in which orcs, fairies, elves, and magic are all existing.
Magical creatures.
Correct. And it's not what you would think when you hear those kinds of characters. It's a cop movie. It's two cops learning to be partners in a crazy situation, except this time, instead of just regular murders, you have murders with magic. Now, Mayhem, what were your initial thoughts of this movie when you saw the trailer?
So first of all, I was very excited. Okay, because Will Smith is actually putting out something gritty. Will Smith is generally typecasted as a character. Let's be honest. He's always typecasted, but he's a cop, so I'm expecting more like a really gritty kind of like movie. And what ends up happening is there's a lot of different things going on, man. There's a lot of issues. But I was excited.
To say the least, there's a lot of things going on in this movie.
Oh, yes, there are. There's a lot of connotations and messages. For instance, he brings up fairies, right? And he brings up how fairy lives don't matter and proceeds to kill a fairy. He proceeds to kill a fairy.
The correct line was, today fairy lives don't matter.
Exactly. So here's the crazy part. Fairies seem to be sentient beings. In a world where magical creatures exist, you would think maybe, I don't know, there's an ASPCA for at least fairies. You know what I'm saying? Fairy ASPCA, you know what I'm saying?
Fairies PCA.
You know, but there's none. And then, of course, there's like the typical Los Angeles, there's gangsters, cholos are there, and he's like, keep doing your gangster tip, keep crip walking, I'm just trying to sell my house. And you know what I'm saying? And then orcs are like pretty much crapped on. There's a line I really want to go into really quickly where he goes, he talks to his previous cops, and the cops are in the locker room, and they hate orcs because the orcs, which we're going to go into, did something in the past that all human beings are against. So the Will Smith is just like, I don't understand how you can have beef with somebody who did something 2,000 years ago, and you know what I'm saying? And that's like a really racially charged message. You know what I'm saying? He's like, y'all can't remember y'all baby mother's names, but y'all...
You can remember what they did.
Right.
That they didn't actually mean to do, and their ancestors. And I think you're right, that the one thing that this movie really had was a lot of racial stories behind it.
Yes.
I remember seeing something where a post where people were saying that orcs were like black people, elves were like Jewish people,
right?
And I mean, the police were just the police, and I think that it captured it very well, in which no one cared about the orcs; they were just their own thing, and even the orc Nick, who was the only orc police officer in the entire United States, he was ousted. He wasn't expected to be part of the orcs. He wasn't expected to be part of the LAPD. So he was an outcast in every way, shape, and form. And even his own partner, which is Will Smith, Daryl, he didn't want him either. So it was, like I said, at that point it was like almost like a typical cop movie where you had the veteran who didn't want to have to train the new guy, and then the new guy has no choice because he wants to be there and all he wants to do is be a cop. Now, the story overall, I thought it was actually pretty decent. The plot itself was very good. It moved on very well, and like I said, it was a cop movie with magic as the center of it, and I actually think they did a very, very good job pushing the story on and just keeping you interested as to see what was going to happen next.
It's interesting that you say that because when Will Smith pitched this movie and he told everybody about it, he said it was Training Day meets Lord of the Rings. And anybody that's watched Training Day, we know the gritty of it. We forget...
And did you catch it? They actually did an entire callback to Training Day a little bit later on.
Yes. So but Training Day is still a cop movie at the end of the day. It's a gritty, realistic kind of like spin on it, but it's still a cop movie. And they tried to spin it. I also want to bring up the meme that you were talking about. It's actually orcs are black people, humans are white people, elves are Jews, and cops are cops. So look that up, of course, so we can. And it's interesting. I felt the story was really good initially. Execution wise, it was just like However, they are looking to do a second part. And even if the second part like falls out, what I'm looking for is to see who the director is to pick it up as a series. Can you imagine what they do for this series?
Actually, you read my mind, because I think that this movie, if it were standalone and left as it is, would fall short in the long run. I think that a sequel movie wouldn't be the direction that needs to go. I think that this would be a great platform to launch an entire series, because there's so many stories that can be told in this setting. Now that you have these two established characters that have some kind of built bond together, and it'd be great from there to grow, because you still have the corrupt LAPD who are now even more corrupt because they want things like magic wands in order to make their entire situation better. And you have in the end, the orc belongs now, and you have everyone else who just wants to get their hands on the magic. They left a lot of questions unanswered, but in a good way, in which a series would fill in more than enough gaps. And I'm not saying that maybe it'll be a 10-year series, but it can definitely do 2 or 3 seasons to really elaborate on what's going on to bring this specific story to a conclusion.
So what I want to compare it to like some famous genre that's already of sci-fi that's already out. So like The Last Jedi that just recently came out. A lot of people have we've done a review on it. A lot of people kind of feel ways about it. My whole thing is on the 3rd episode. That's I feel how they're gonna tie everything in. So as a standalone, it might be you like it, you maybe don't. But I think by the 3rd episode, everybody will like it. Or you can even go back to the first Star Wars movie. If they left it as that, we'd be like, it's a great thought, but like they didn't expand. Like they need episode 2. They need episode 3 to kind of go back and explain what the Force is, what Luke is doing, the direction of the story, and whatnot. So I agree with you 100%. Where they take this could be potentially awesome. They could have a full season just explaining what the Dark Lord and the War was, and maybe the orcs weren't following. Maybe they were coerced into doing this. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it was a blood pact. Like you see all these ideas. I don't even work for Netflix. You know what I'm saying? Like you can really like build something.
Netflix, we got ideas for you. Come on, man.
Bring us on. Cut the check. Cut the check.
Cut the check.
We'll have a script for you by Monday. So it's a really great open-ended segment. Now, what I'm looking forward from this is I want them to explain the elves a little bit more, because elves are just really snobbish, and except for the main character, the elf that's there, which we're going to go into, she was horrible at parkour. Can we talk about that? Like, she sucked at parkour. Like, I feel like if we were paying tag...
she might have sucked at parkour, but she's still better than us, so you can't even complain.
No,
can't even compare.
I feel like if I was running to catch her, I'd get her. I understand it was action. Her parkour sucks. Like, I'm going to tag her, you're it. Even if it's freeze tag, you're frozen. And it's going to save you. Like...
they explained that she's still fairly new to all this, so you know what? Maybe they did it on purpose in order to show her lack of training. I mean, she wasn't like the other Inferni elves that were just absolutely all over the place, bouncing off the walls, and you could have 10 people shooting bullets at them, but they're dodging them left and right. And at one point, one of the Infernis just walks up and just stabs someone in the throat while he was shooting at her like nothing. So I guess that's what they did with Taki, which she's still new, and they want to show that she's still new at what she's doing.
That's fine. I feel like maybe you should get a stand-in. As far as the Inferni goes, I kind of felt at the end they got shortchanged. I felt
they could have done a lot more, but I think they did what they needed to do with the story to not push too much as to a grand picture. You know, these are small enemies. Maybe those enemies could have been a little more involved, but it was essentially a cop movie with a small chase in it where they were trying to get to them, and they got to them, and they did the final battle, and that's it.
But all right. We're not going to go into it too much, but let's be back. For those who have seen it, just remember that last scene with the Inferni and how easily they were dispatched. I'm just saying, Will Smith's character didn't seem like he was judo master, and the orcs are powerful, but at the same time, we all know big bulk muscles. They were out here like matrixing people, like
that's true, but it's the LAPD.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? The LAPD has all kinds of brutality training.
You want to talk about cops that could possibly take about the Inferni? Bring back Lethal Weapon, okay? Bring back Mel Gibson and bring back that duo, and I think they got a shot.
All right, so
they took down a famous kung fu master. I'm just saying, Jet Li.
The overall story was good. You know, it had its ups and downs. The story itself brought you in, took you back out. I think it accomplished what it wanted to accomplish. And there's one thing I will say. It was actually, it's not Lord of the Rings as far as visually stunning, but when you're looking at nitty-gritty LA, incorporating something like you did with the elves and the orcs and the magic, I actually think they did a fairly decent job in the darkness that is LA to add these magical elements in there. I felt it actually belonged. I would go as far as saying I felt like that it could actually be true that this magic does exist in LA. So
there are a lot of open-ended questions, like the feds. Who are the feds? How did the elves get control of the world? What exactly is the hierarchy? Obviously, they're going to answer that. Now, let's focus on the film. I felt like they kind of cheated, but then they also did a great job. For instance, like the wand scene where the guy touched the wand and everybody exploded. I thought that was great. I thought that was visually like, and the guy's like, what happened to them? We're breathing them in. You know, I was like, oh, snap. But then also it's typical LA. So it's like,
they blown up or in LA and shit?
You know, yeah, pretty much. Fires, shot, pew pew, gangs. So it's just like, it's a familiar setting and they add all these magical elements to it. I personally think their best scene for action, if you ask me, was the strip club scene. Not because the women dancing, but because of the actual, like the way they executed everything, the stunt.
Everything felt like it belonged, essentially.
Exactly. It happened at a strip club, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think I'd be rather throwing dollars than getting my throat slit, but you know, hey, why not? You know, it's an action scene.
Actually, for me, one of the most beautiful scenes, it was in the safe house when you saw the Inferni that got pinned to the wall.
Yeah.
Just the way they blended her into the wall. Actually, it brings me back to one thing. It reminded me of Jehovah from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And the scene in which Sephiroth approaches her.
Yeah.
That is what I saw when I saw that. And I was like, they made it look realistic. They made it look beautiful, and it blended in very well. The fact that she blended it with the wall very well.
Plot-wise, I wanted a little bit more history on the orcs in this movie. It's like, who are the orcs? Like, give me something. All we know is just that they serve the Dark Lord, and they seem like a tightly knit community when they're blooded. Otherwise, you're an outcast. He's already an outcast in the human being society, and as well as the orcs. What about other magical creatures? Like, for instance, I don't know if you caught it. There's a centaur there.
Yeah, there was a quick centaur just passed by. And they mentioned dwarves and didn't really show any dwarves. I don't know if I missed it, but I didn't see any dwarves.
Yeah, I didn't see any.
As far as the Dark Lord and that entire war, that could be its own prequel movie altogether. See, that's something that could be done as a movie, and that's it. You get the story going. Now I have to go back to something you said in the very beginning, though.
Okay.
Which is Will Smith being typecast. I still feel this was Will Smith being Will Smith, except around orcs.
Okay, so I will say this. Will Smith's acting is pretty dope. I can't front, as familiar as it is, how he turns on his emotions, like towards the end, like him like coming near close to tears, him going against the other the corrupted officers. I'm like, yo, he's really evolved his acting for sure. But he's still typecasted. Number one, he's still the funny guy. Yes. All right, we know this. He's a funny guy.
The family guy, the funny guy, as you said.
Right. He's the funny family guy, or he's the funny, obnoxious guy who's like very loud in the mouth. Number two, he's always conflicted. What was that movie where he was a con artist? Focus.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, Focus, I thought, started out really great. And then it's just like towards the end of it, and it's like the guys just wrapped it up. But look at that. He wasn't married or anything of that nature, right? He did have a dad and all this other stuff, but he was conflicted. He was like smart. He was genuine and all this other stuff. But then he became the funny guy and he became the comic relief towards the end. It's like, that's the Will Smith we all know and love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, typecasted all the time. Good.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, essentially every part gets right into how Will Smith can be delivered. You know, he hasn't really had a full-on role outside of what he's known for since probably around Ali and 7 Pounds.
Pursuit of
So,
Happiness. You got to throw that in there as well.
Pursuit, of course, Pursuit of
Yeah.
Happiness.
Which was actually based on a true story, if I'm not mistaken. But go ahead.
But since those movies, maybe since he reached his overall peak as far as here's my range, now I can take it easy and just enjoy my roles going forward and not have to worry about too much on the range because I'm getting paid so much money.
Right.
But
92 million. Shoot.
I mean, he's put in the work, so why not? But when you look at the entire cast of this movie, Will Smith is the only like huge actor in this movie.
Right.
Everyone else, not to call them D-list actors, maybe around the B-list, but a lot of them you wouldn't even recognize outside of maybe some TV roles. And maybe some comedians were thrown in there.
Right.
So Will Smith, even though you saw that he was promoting it heavily, I think that the reason he was chosen for this role is because he would bring people to actually watch it. Because it's Will Smith starting in this original Netflix movie. So, hey, I want to see what Will Smith is doing in this movie. So, boom.
I think this, although the character's typecasted, this is not his story. He does fantasy stories, like Independence Day. He also did, what's that stupid movie? Wild Wild West. You know what I'm saying? So, what I like about the movie as far as characters go, I think Will Smith was actually outshined by the Orc.
No, he was actually.
With Joe Edgerton, if I'm not mistaken, Egerton is his name.
Yeah.
Nick, like I think he outshined him. For real, he's a forced Orc cop, and it's like you see that he's pain. He's going through a lot of emotions because he's not accepted anywhere. But then at the same time, he kind of made a mistake. He's trying to atone for it, not to just be accepted, but to also find his place. He really outshined everybody in this movie, which is interesting. I wonder how much he got paid though.
You nowhere near as much as Will Smith, I'll tell you that much.
92 million, I don't know, you know?
Exactly. But I think that maybe that's what might have brought a little more balance to the relationship, which is why I enjoy that dynamic between them. Because Will Smith did not outact him. It wasn't outwritten. You had equal amounts of screen time between the both of them. And you saw that back and forth of Will Smith starting to accept who the Orc was slowly as the story went on. And even at a certain point, even the Orc goes, you know, I never really liked you either.
Right.
You know? And it just like, at that point where they both say, I don't like you and I don't like you either, it like fully cemented their relationship. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, overall, the movie was a good movie. If it was a theater release, I'm pretty sure that it would not do that well. It would do okay. So, as I'll give credit to someone else who that said, a friend of mine, Darian, actually put on saying that it would be a great direct-to-DVD movie, and luckily it's on Netflix. So there you go. You got your direct-to-Netflix movie that fits in perfectly for what it was.
I will say this. It definitely, if it was in a movie theaters, I'd probably tell you not to go see it. I'd probably tell you to wait till it comes to DVD or until they release it on your programmer, cable provider, if you will. Once again, Will Smith is being typecasted as the family, funny, conflicted guy. It's interesting that they did all of this to set it up, and they didn't leave us with any cliffhangers or nothing. The only cliffhanger that we have is that there are 2 other wands. Mm. So it's like you can build upon it, which is interesting. I'm surprised the director didn't do anything of that nature. Like, why didn't you leave us something to kind of look forward to?
They said that they needed 3 wands, but they didn't necessarily mean that there are only 3 wands.
Exactly.
So, you know, that's a good enough question to really keep us going into the next movie, because you know what? If another movie comes out, I'm definitely watching it because I did enjoy this universe. I did enjoy what was going on and would look forward to what else they release.
You know what I'm looking forward? I hope Tika turns. I think that would be awesome. And maybe a little bit more short. I think her parkour will be on point at that point.
I'm pretty sure by the next time the next movie comes along, she's probably gonna have a little more training and they'll get a better parkour actor to take her place. You know, but
listen, I'm just saying, like in every video game and every movie, when the good guy becomes a villain for a little bit, they are astronomical. They're stronger. They got better moves. Look at the Green Ranger, okay? The Green Ranger was a beast. He beat up the Power Rangers twice. Even came into their Megazord. Blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, man. every time a good person goes bad, even for a little bit, they're awesome. They're awesome. They beat everybody's butt, and then they come back and it's like, all right, well, here I am again, not as strong as before, actually.
Oh, there you go, Netflix. We're giving you ideas for the sequels.
What I want to know is, what do you think is going to happen for the next movie, and what do you think the overall success of this is? Like, what did it do for you?
The movie, it brought new ideas to me, a new understanding of what a modern day LA with these kinds of creatures would be. I really enjoyed that. As far as where the series can go, you have all these characters who, well, now you have the dynamic between the two partners, which means that the next movie they'll work a lot better together to, of course, take on the next big bad that comes along the way. If they go along the lines of Marvel, in which they'll throw in the big bad at the very end of the third movie.
Right.
I mean, it depends. I guess we'll see what kind of dynamic and what kind of following that this movie grows. I think when it comes to these kinds of fantasy settings, cult followings grow real quick.
Yep.
So that'll get a sequel. It'll definitely get a sequel. And it'll get its fanfics. It'll get its diehard fans who watch this movie 20 million times to find every last thing, and people who sit here and like theorize on every last aspect, like, oh well, there was a centaur in one of the movies, and guess what? There's a reason that they showed this centaur, because this centaur is actually aligned with the Dark Lord. He's not actually with the LAPD, and he's here to, because you saw that this human had that sword in this scene, that centaur is gonna find that sword, and he's gonna be able to turn that sword into a wand.
That centaur's probably badass. He was on SWAT, okay, so he's kicking ass. He's kicking ass
and taking names at it. So you'll get that huge following behind it, and I mean, actually, the possibilities of what's going to happen, we all know it's going to lead into a next set of wands, maybe a higher up in the Inferni ladder to see who's the next group of people, because you know that these 4 Inferni that they showed, well, actually 5 Inferni that they showed in this movie are not the ending point.
So just to kind of like dive into that, I think it's going to open magical fantasy genres back up again. We haven't had like a big success like this since Twilight. Going from that, like werewolves, vampires, all these magical creatures has kind of been put back to the side, and sci-fi has been flourishing a lot more. So I think this is going to open that window, or that door, if you will, back into magical creatures. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong, Lord of the Rings is still there, and all J.R. Tolkien's books and whatnot, but at the same time, it's like, this is more modern, because we're having
a different approach to it.
3 genres. There's the normal genre like Frankenstein, like Dracula, that we all know, love, and grew up, that they're going to work on, right? Then there's more depth into it. Like for us geeks, like Lord of the Rings is so thought out and so planned and so technically geek for us that not everybody's with it. You know what I'm saying? I hate to say it, but it's kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean. You like the characters, but when they kind of go into what the story is, you're kind of like, yeah. So now I feel like
if you're not a hardcore fan, you're gonna like trail off, and you're not gonna pay attention to what's going on.
It took me a while to get into it. This third movie, I fell asleep. Listen, let's not talk about it. Anyway, the third genre is pretty much the cusp between the two, where you can kind of slide into a little bit more realism as far as like modern day, but still kind of keep that magic, which is interesting, magical fantasy, and kind of be a little bit more in depth, and like you said, create a cult. So that's what I think Bright is going with, because it's a realistic place, LA, but set in the alternate universe, hey, multiverse theory, and it's just like fantasy creatures. So now it leaves a plethora of like ideas and possibilities.
All right, well, there you go, guys. As far as both of us go, Bright, good movie, not a huge theatrical release. It's definitely it's great where it's located currently on Netflix. So if you have the opportunity, go check it out. Not necessarily you need to run in and watch it. It's not going to change your world unless you really get drawn into it. Then probably will change your world. And who knows, you might start dressing like an orc every other weekend. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Matter of fact, can we name the centaur Sandy? Because I feel like he's a Sandy guy. Is Sandy?
I think he's more tough. Okay, but you know what? That goes well. He's Sandy the SWAT centaur.
Yes, Sandy
the SWAT centaur. It is.
Centaur.
All right. So, keep an eye out for Sandy the SWAT centaur, because we know that he's going to use that sword, and that was actually a wand the entire time, or something along those lines. Who knows what kind of theories people are going to come up with. If you watched the last episode of Talking Flix, you saw how I went off on how people need to stop theorizing on movies, because things get written on the fly nowadays. Nothing really gets planned out unless it's Marvel, especially DC movies. So guys, thanks again, and until the next episode, guys. And Mayhem, where can we catch you?
You can catch me at the Last Stop on the L, hashtag Last Stop on the L, or even on Facebook. Definitely go to our webpage. You can find me at YFR Mayhem on Twitter. Be sure to hit me all things geek related.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Until the next one. Hey guys, thanks for watching another episode of Talking Flix. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment below. Let us know what you thought of this video. Until the next one, guys.